All right, so we're diving deep today, all about TMJ. You already know, if you're listening to this, that it's a pain literally, and you want answers.
Absolutely.
You want to know if there's any way to get rid of this thing.
Yeah.
And one of the interesting things is that the causes of TMJ might surprise you.
Yeah, it really is fascinating how many everyday habits contribute to TMJ without us realizing it.
Okay, so before we get into all the crazy ways that we could potentially cure TMJ, let's back up and make sure we all know what we're talking about.
Right.
Can you give us a quick TMJ 101, what's going on in our jaw?
So the temporomandibular joint, which is the one that connects your jawbone to your skull, is kind of a marvel of engineering.
Yeah.
It lets us move our jaw in all these directions, up and down, side to side, forward and back. And we need that for talking, chewing, yawning, basically everything our mouths do. But when this joint gets out of whack, that's when the trouble starts.
Right, yeah.
And the pain.
So our sources mention some surprising causes of TMJ, things that we do probably every single day without even thinking about it. Is it possible that my love of chewy candy could be coming back to bite me, literally?
It's definitely possible. So every time you chew or talk or even yawn, you're putting stress on that temporomandibular joint. And over time, those stresses can add up, especially if you're dealing with things like chronic stress.
Oh, wow.
Or even poor posture.
Wait, poor posture. I never would have connected that with my jaw.
It's all connected. So when you're slouching, your head juts forward, and that puts strain on those jaw muscles.
Oh.
And then there's stress.
Right.
A huge factor. When we're stressed, we clench our jaws even unconsciously. And that constant tension can wreak havoc on the muscles and the ligaments around the joint.
So my stressful commute combined with my terrible posture is like a recipe for TMJ disaster.
It's definitely a possibility. And the thing is that many people ignore the early warning signs.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they brush it off as a minor annoyance.
So what are some of the symptoms that people should be looking out for? Is it just jaw pain, or are there other things going on?
So jaw pain is a big one, but it can also be headaches or earaches or even neck pain. You might notice some clicking or popping sounds when you open and close your mouth.
Oh,
or your jaw might feel stiff or locked.
That sounds miserable.
Yeah.
I bet it makes simple things like eating really difficult.
Exactly. Imagine trying to enjoy a meal when your jaw hurts with every bite.
Yeah?
It can also affect your sleep.
Oh, wow.
Lead to insomnia and fatigue. And then there's the emotional toll.
Right.
Living with chronic pain can really mess with your mental health.
Yeah.
Lead to anxiety and even depression.
So it really is a whole body experience.
It is.
So if you are experiencing any of these symptoms, definitely time to go get it checked out.
Right.
What does that process look like?
Well, the first step is usually a visit to your dentist or your doctor. And they'll ask about your symptoms and your medical history and your lifestyle habits. They'll also do a physical exam to assess your jaw movement.
Okay.
And check for tenderness or clicking. And in some cases, they might order imaging tests.
Okay.
Like x-rays or an MRI.
Gotcha.
To get a better look at the joint structure.
All right. So once you have a diagnosis, what are the options for actually getting rid of this thing? I know our sources mention a lot of different treatment approaches.
Right. And the good news is that there are a lot of options, both surgical and non-surgical.
Okay.
But before we jump into those, I want to say that finding a lasting cure often involves a multi-pronged approach.
Okay.
It's not just about treating the symptoms. It's about addressing the root cause and making lifestyle changes that will support long-term jaw health.
I like that holistic approach. So where do we start? What are some of the non-surgical options that people can explore?
Well, one of the first lines of defense is often jaw exercises. Oh, really?
I know it sounds a bit strange.
Yeah.
But specific exercises can help strengthen the muscles around the jaw, improve flexibility, and alleviate pain.
So like physical therapy for your jaw. Yeah, think of it like that.
Are we talking about lifting tiny weights with our teeth?
No, not quite.
Okay.
But there are stretches and strengthening exercises that are designed for the jaw.
Okay.
And then beyond the exercises, our sources talk about the importance of relaxation techniques, things like deep breathing or meditation.
Okay.
These can help reduce overall tension, which can be a major trigger for TMJ.
Yeah, and that's where it gets interesting for me because it ties into the broader conversation about the mind-body connection.
Absolutely.
We're not just treating the physical symptom. We're also looking at the underlying stress and tension that might be contributing to the problem.
It's about understanding that our physical and emotional well-being are deeply intertwined.
Okay, so beyond that, what about lifestyle changes?
Right. Lifestyle changes can make a surprisingly big difference.
So Unpack that for me. What kind of lifestyle changes are we talking about?
Well, simple things like avoiding hard or chewy foods,
Okay.
which put a lot of strain on the jaw.
Mm-hmm.
So think about switching to softer foods like soups, smoothies, cooked vegetables, things like that.
Okay.
And remember what we talked about earlier.
Yeah.
Posture plays a role too.
Okay.
Make an effort to maintain good posture throughout the day, keeping your head aligned over your spine.
So standing up straight isn't just good for your back. It's good for your jaw, too.
That's right.
What about for those people who need relief, like immediately?
Mm-hmm.
Are there any home remedies that can help?
Absolutely. Applying hot or cold compresses to the jaw can help reduce pain, and swelling over-the-counter pain relievers can also provide temporary relief.
Mm-hmm.
And don't underestimate the power of a good night's sleep.
Oh, yeah.
When you're well rested, your body's better able to cope with pain and inflammation.
Okay, so we've got like exercises, relaxation techniques, lifestyle changes, home remedies. It's like a whole toolbox of things.
Yeah.
But what about when those aren't enough? When do you need to bring in the professionals?
Well, if your symptoms are severe or persistent or interfering with your daily life, then it's time to seek professional help.
Okay.
And there are a few different avenues you can explore. One common option is a custom-made mouth guard or splint.
Ah, the mouth guard.
Yeah.
Isn't that mainly for like athletes or people who grind their teeth at night?
While those are common uses, they can also be very helpful for TMJ.
Okay.
They work by repositioning the jaw and reducing the strain on the joint.
So it's like giving your jaw a little vacation from all that tension.
Exactly. And
Okay.
beyond mouth guards, there are other professional interventions like Botox injection.
Botox for your jaw. That's not something you hear every day.
Right.
So it sounds like there's a lot of different options depending on the severity of your TMJ and your individual needs.
That's right. And it's important to have a thorough consultation with a qualified medical professional to determine the best course of treatment for you.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground on those non-surgical approaches.
Right.
But what about those more severe cases where surgery might be necessary?
Right.
What do those options look like?
Well, surgery is typically reserved for situations where non-surgical options haven't provided sufficient relief,
Okay.
or when there are structural problems with the joint itself.
Mm-hmm.
There are a few different procedures, each with its own pros and cons.
Okay.
One procedure is called arthrocentesis.
Arthrocentesis.
Yeah, it's minimally invasive.
Okay.
Basically, they just flush out debris and inflammatory substances from the joint.
So kind of like a deep cleaning for your jaw.
That's a great way to put it. It's relatively quick, and recovery is usually pretty fast.
Awesome. What about other surgical options, like if it's more than just a cleaning issue?
Another common procedure is TMJ arthroscopy.
Okay.
And with this, they use a small camera and instruments to actually see inside the joint
Wow.
and treat things like torn ligaments or a displaced disc.
So that's pretty high tech. It's amazing what they can do these days.
It is.
What about in the most severe cases? Like, is there like a last resort option?
In those situations, there's open joint surgery. This
Okay.
is a lot more extensive, where they might reshape the bones or even replace parts of the joint.
So that sounds pretty intense. Are there risks with these surgical procedures?
Like any surgery, there are risks, things like infection or nerve damage. It's not a decision to be taken lightly.
So it's really important to weigh the potential benefits against the risks and make sure you're working with a qualified surgeon who can guide you through the process.
Absolutely. And remember, surgery is usually the last resort.
Right.
There are so many things to try first.
Right. We've talked about all those non-surgical options, and it seems like those can be really effective for a lot of people.
Yeah.
But I'm curious, like, is it possible to truly cure TMJ permanently? Or is it something you just have to manage for the rest of your life?
That's the million-dollar question. And the answer for then, like most things in health, isn't simple.
Yeah.
It depends on the individual and the underlying causes.
Mm.
Some cases might resolve completely with minimal intervention,
Okay.
while others might require ongoing management.
So it's not always a one-and-done solution.
Exactly.
Right.
Our sources really emphasize a holistic approach for lasting relief.
Okay.
It's not just about fixing the mechanics of the joint. It's about addressing the physical, emotional, and lifestyle factors that contribute to TMJ.
It's about understanding like the whole picture.
Right. That's it.
Yeah.
And this is where the concept of combining different approaches gets really interesting.
Oh, okay.
For example, someone might have corrective surgery, but also incorporate jaw exercises and stress management techniques for a more complete recovery.
So it's like a multifaceted approach
Yeah.
tailored to the individual.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, let's say someone has found relief maybe through a combination of treatments. Like, What can they do to prevent TMJ from coming back?
That's a great question, and it's something our sources highlight as being super important. A lot of it comes back to those healthy habits we talked about before. Avoiding hard foods, maintaining good posture, managing stress.
Right. Makes sense. So it's like setting yourself up for success in the long run.
Exactly. There's one more thing that might surprise you, oral hygiene.
Oral hygiene.
Yeah.
So like brushing and flossing
Yeah.
aren't just about having a sparkling smile.
Right.
They can actually help prevent jaw problems.
Proper dental care can prevent issues like teeth grinding, which we know can contribute to TMJ.
Oh my gosh, my mind is blown.
Yeah.
I'm starting to see my dentist in a whole new light.
I
So prevention really is key when it comes to TMJ.
It is. And even if you've never had TMJ, these are great habits to incorporate into your routine. But if you're already dealing with it, they're even more crucial.
Okay, so we've talked about a ton of strategies for managing and even potentially curing TMJ.
Right.
But there's one thing we haven't touched on yet.
Okay.
And that's the emotional and mental health aspects. We talked earlier about how chronic pain can take a toll on your mental well-being.
Right.
Are there specific strategies for addressing that side of things?
That's a really important point, and it's something that often gets overlooked.
Yeah?
Chronic pain, like what you experience with TMJ, can absolutely impact your mental health. It can lead to anxiety, depression, even feelings of isolation.
Wow.
So it's crucial to address that aspect as well.
So what can people do? Where do they even start?
Well, first and foremost, acknowledging that it's okay to not be okay.
Yeah.
It's normal to feel overwhelmed or frustrated or even angry when you're dealing with chronic pain.
Right.
Don't try to bottle those feelings up. Talk to someone you trust,
Okay.
whether it's a friend, a family member, a therapist, or a support group. Sharing your experience can make a huge difference.
So it's about finding that support system, those people who can listen and validate your experience.
Absolutely. And beyond talking about it, there are other things you can do to support your mental health while dealing with TMJ. Things like mindfulness practices, meditation, or even just spending time in nature.
Right. So it's about finding those activities that bring you joy and help you manage stress.
Exactly. And remember, seeking professional help is always an option.
Okay.
A therapist can provide tools and strategies for coping with chronic pain and the emotional challenges that come with it.
Okay. So we've covered a lot of ground on those emotional and mental health aspects of TMJ.
We have.
But before we move on, I want to circle back to something you mentioned earlier,
Okay.
and that's support groups.
Right.
What role can those play in managing TMJ?
Support groups can be incredibly valuable for people with TMJ. They provide a safe and supportive space to connect with others who understand what you're going through. It can be so isolating to deal with chronic pain, and it can feel like nobody really gets it.
Yeah.
But in a support group, you're surrounded by people who have been there, who get the struggles, the frustrations, and the triumphs.
So it's about that shared experience, that feeling of not being alone.
Exactly. And beyond that feeling of connection, support groups can also be a great source of information and practical tips. Oh, okay.
People can share their experiences with different treatments, what worked for them, what didn't, and offer advice and support to one another.
So it's like a community of shared knowledge and support.
Exactly. And the beauty of support groups is that they come in all shapes and sizes. There are online forums, in-person meetings groups, specifically for certain types of TMJ,
Wow.
or groups focused on the emotional and mental health aspects.
So there's really something for everyone. How can people find a support group that's right for them?
Well, one great place to start is by asking your healthcare provider.
Josh?
They might know of local groups or be able to connect you with online resources. You can also search online for TMJ support groups in your area, or check out organizations like the TMJ Association,
Okay.
which often have lists of resources and support groups.
Okay, so if you're feeling alone in your TMJ journey, remember that there are people out there who understand what you're going through, and there are resources available to support you. Absolutely. You're not alone in this. And that brings us to another important topic, advocating for yourself within the healthcare system.
Right, because navigating the healthcare system can be challenging, especially when you're dealing with a condition like TMJ that's often misunderstood or misdiagnosed.
It is.
How can people be better advocates for themselves?
It starts with being informed. The more you know about TMJ, the better equipped you'll be to advocate for your needs. That's one reason we're doing this deep dive.
Yeah.
To empower you with knowledge.
Knowledge is power.
Yeah, absolutely. And don't be afraid to ask questions. If you don't understand something your doctor is saying, or if you have concerns about a particular treatment option, speak up.
So it's about being like an active participant in your own care, not just a passive recipient.
Exactly. And if you're not getting the answers or the care you need from one provider,
Yeah.
don't be afraid to seek a second opinion.
It's okay to shop around until you find a healthcare professional who listens to you, understands your concerns, and is willing to work with you to find the best possible treatment plan.
Absolutely. And one more tip for being a good advocate for yourself, keep a journal of your symptoms.
A journal. Okay, what kind of things should people be tracking?
Well, things like when your pain is worse,
Okay.
what activities seem to trigger it, what makes it feel better.
Yeah.
Also, any other symptoms you're experiencing, like headaches, earaches, or neck pain.
So basically becoming a detective of your own body.
Exactly. That information can be incredibly helpful for your healthcare provider. It can help them make a more accurate diagnosis.
Okay.
And develop a more effective treatment plan.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground on advocating for yourself within the healthcare system.
We have.
And I think that ties in really well with another theme that's emerged throughout this deep dive, the importance of taking a proactive approach to your health.
Absolutely. It's about moving away from the traditional model of waiting until you're sick to seek help.
Right.
And instead taking steps to prevent illness and optimize your well-being.
Yeah, it's about taking ownership of your health and being an active participant in the process.
Exactly. And when it comes to TMJ, that means being mindful of your jaw habits, managing your stress levels, maintaining good posture, and seeking professional help when needed.
It's about listening to your body, paying attention to the signs, and taking action to address them. And remember, even small changes can make a big difference over time.
Absolutely. And speaking of small changes, let's talk about some practical things people can do in their daily lives to support their jaw health. We touched on diet earlier, but there are some other surprisingly simple things that can make a big impact.
Okay, I'm all ears. What kind of things are we talking about?
Well, one thing that often gets overlooked is hydration.
Okay.
Drinking plenty of water throughout the day is crucial for keeping your joints lubricated and functioning properly.
That's such a simple yet important reminder.
It is, and when we're talking about jaw health, hydration is especially important.
Yeah.
Because it helps keep the muscles and tissues around the jaw joint supple and flexible.
So water really is a magic potion for our bodies.
It really is. And another surprisingly simple thing you can do is pay attention to your sleep position.
Sleep position. How does that affect TMJ?
Well, certain positions can actually put extra strain on your jaw joints. For example, sleeping on your stomach with your head turned to the side
Oh, yeah.
can force your jaw into an awkward position.
Okay, I'm definitely guilty of that one.
Yeah.
So what's the best position for jaw health?
Sleeping on your back is generally considered the best.
Okay.
For your spine and your jaw, it helps keep your head and neck in a neutral position, reducing strain on the joints.
And if you're a side sleeper like me, are there any tips for making it more jaw-friendly?
Absolutely. Use a pillow that supports your head and neck properly.
Okay.
So your jaw isn't jutting forward or twisting to the side.
That's a great tip.
Yeah.
Okay, so sleep position, hydration, any other everyday things people can do to support their jaw health?
Well, this might sound a bit unusual, but pay attention to your breathing.
Breathing. What does that do with TMJ?
Actually, many people with TMJ tend to breathe shallowly, using their chest muscles instead of their diaphragm.
Yep.
This can create tension in the neck and shoulders, which can then radiate down to the jaw.
Interesting. So learning to breathe deeply and using our diaphragm correctly could actually help relax those jaw muscles.
Exactly. And there are a ton of resources available online and in person that can teach you proper breathing techniques.
Okay, I'm adding learn to breathe properly to my TMJ to-do list.
Yeah, it's definitely worth it. And along with breathing, pay attention to your tongue posture.
Tongue posture. Is that a thing?
It is, believe it or not, the way you hold your tongue can actually impact your jaw alignment and muscle tension.
Okay, I'm officially intrigued. Tell me more about this tongue posture thing.
Well, ideally, your tongue should be resting gently against the roof of your mouth,
Okay,
just behind your front teeth.
like I'm about to say the letter N.
Exactly. And when you swallow, your tongue should press up against the roof of your mouth, helping to expand your palate and create space for your teeth.
Okay, this is fascinating. So what happens if your tongue isn't in the right position?
Well, it can create a cascade of problems.
Oh, no.
It can narrow your palate, crowd your teeth, and even contribute to TMJ.
Wow. I never realized how powerful our tongues could be.
Yeah.
So what can people do to improve their tongue posture?
There are exercises you can do, and there are even devices that can help train your tongue to rest in the correct position.
Okay, I'm definitely going to have to look into that. So we've covered a lot of ground on those practical tips.
Mm-hmm.
But there's one more thing I want to touch on before we wrap up this part of our deep dive.
Okay.
The importance of seeking professional help.
Absolutely. While self-care strategies can be incredibly helpful, there are times when seeking professional guidance is essential.
When do you know it's time to call in the experts?
Well, if your TMJ symptoms are severe, persistent, or interfering with your daily life, it's definitely time to reach out for help. And it's not just about finding any doctor, it's about finding the right healthcare professional for your specific needs.
So who are the experts in this case?
Yeah.
Who should people be seeking out?
It depends on the nature of your TMJ and your individual circumstances. Some healthcare professionals who can help diagnose and treat TMJ include dentists, oral surgeons, otolaryngologists, and even neurologists.
Wow, that's quite a team. How do you know which specialist is right for you?
Your primary care physician can often provide a referral based on your symptoms and medical history. But remember, it's okay to advocate for yourself and seek a second opinion if you're not getting the answers or the care you need.
Right. We talked about the importance of being an active participant in your own care.
Exactly. And when you're looking for a healthcare provider, make sure you find someone who listens to you, takes your concerns seriously, and is willing to work with you to find the best possible treatment plan.
It's about finding a true partner in your health journey.
Absolutely. And one last thing I want to emphasize is that there's no shame in seeking help.
Right.
It's a sign of strength, not weakness.
It's about taking care of yourself and prioritizing your well-being.
Exactly. And we'll talk more about the resources and support systems available in the final part of our deep dive.
Awesome. I can't wait.
So we were talking about the emotional and mental health side of things, living with chronic pain. It can really make you feel alone, like nobody understands what you're going through.
Yeah, it's definitely not something you want to deal with on your own.
Right, and that's where support groups can really come in.
Okay, I was going to ask you about those. You mentioned them earlier, and they sound like a really valuable resource.
Support groups can be amazing for people with TMJ. I mean, they provide a safe and supportive space to connect with other people who get it, who understand exactly what you're dealing with, because so many people suffer in silence thinking they're the only ones going through this.
Right. It's like that shared experience. The feeling of not being alone can be so powerful.
Absolutely. And beyond that feeling of connection, support groups can also be really helpful for practical advice.
How so?
Well, people share their experiences with different treatments, what worked for them, what didn't work. They offer advice and support to each other.
So it's like a community of shared knowledge.
Exactly. And the great thing is, support groups come in all shapes and sizes. You've got online forums, in-person meetings groups, specifically for certain types of TMJ.
Wow.
Even groups that focus more on the emotional and mental health aspects.
So there really is something out there for everyone. How can people find a support group that's the right fit for them?
Well, a good place to start is by asking your healthcare provider.
Okay.
They might know of some local groups or be able to connect you with online resources. You can also do some searching online for TMJ support groups in your area, or check out organizations like the TMJ Association.
Gotcha.
They often have lists of resources and support groups.
So if you are feeling alone in your TMJ journey, remember that there are people out there who get it, and there are resources available to support you.
You are not alone in this. And that kind of leads us into another important topic, advocating for yourself within the healthcare system.
Yeah, that's a good point, because navigating the healthcare system can be really challenging, especially when you're dealing with a condition like TMJ that's often misunderstood or misdiagnosed.
You're telling me.
So how can people be better advocates for their own health?
It starts with being informed.
Okay.
The more you know about TMJ, the better equipped you'll be to advocate for your needs. And that's one reason we're doing this deep dive.
Yeah.
To give you that knowledge.
Knowledge is power.
Absolutely. And don't afraid to ask questions if you don't understand something your doctor is saying. Or if you have concerns about a particular treatment, speak up.
It's about being an active participant in your care, not just a passive recipient.
Exactly. And if you're not getting the answers or the care that you need from one provider, don't be afraid to seek a second opinion.
Yeah, it's okay to shop around until you find a healthcare professional who really listens to you, understands your concerns, and is willing to work with you to find the best treatment plan.
Absolutely. And one more tip for being a good advocate for yourself, keep a journal of your symptoms.
Oh, a journal.
Yeah.
Okay, what kind of things should people be tracking?
Things like when your pain is worse, what activities seem to trigger it, what makes it feel better, any other symptoms you're experiencing, headaches, earaches, neck pain.
So it's like becoming a detective of your own body.
Exactly. And that information can be super valuable for your healthcare provider.
Okay.
It can help them make a more accurate diagnosis and come up with a better treatment plan.
That makes a lot of sense.
Mhm.
So we've talked a lot about advocating for yourself in the healthcare system.
We have.
And I think it ties into another theme that's come up throughout this whole deep dive, the importance of taking a proactive approach to your health.
Absolutely. It's about moving away from that old model of waiting until you're sick to go to the doctor,
Yeah.
and instead taking steps to prevent illness and just feel your best.
It's about taking ownership of your health and being an active participant.
Exactly. And with TMJ, that means being mindful of those jaw habits, managing stress levels,
Oh.
maintaining good posture,
Mhm.
seeking professional help when you need it.
So basically listening to your body, paying attention to those early warning signs, and taking action.
Precisely. And remember, even small changes can add up to big results over time.
That's encouraging to hear. And speaking of small changes, let's talk about some practical things that people can do every day to support their jaw health.
Okay.
We've touched on diet, but are there other surprisingly simple things that can make a difference?
Absolutely. One that often gets overlooked is hydration.
Okay.
Make sure you're drinking plenty of water throughout the day.
Right. That's so important for everything.
It is. It keeps your joints lubricated and working properly. And when we're talking about jaw health, hydration is especially important because it keeps those muscles and tissues around the joint nice and supple and flexible.
Okay, so water really is a magic potion for our bodies.
It truly is. And another surprisingly simple thing you can do is pay attention to your sleep position.
Sleep position. How does that play into TMJ?
Believe it or not, certain sleep positions can actually put extra strain on your jaw joints.
Oh, really?
Yeah, like sleeping on your stomach with your head turned to the side can force your jaw into a really awkward position.
Okay, I do that all the time.
And that can lead to pain and discomfort.
So what's the best position for good jaw health?
Sleeping on your back is generally the best for your spine and your jaw.
Okay.
It keeps your head and neck in a neutral position, which minimizes strain on the joints.
Now, if you're a side sleeper like me, are there any tips for making it more jaw-friendly?
Absolutely. Use a pillow that supports your head and neck properly so your jaw isn't jutting forward or twisting to the side.
Okay, good to know. So we've got sleep position, hydration, any other everyday habits that can help?
Well, this might sound a little strange, but pay attention to your breathing.
Breathing. Okay, I'm listening. How does breathing relate to TMJ?
Well, you see, many people with TMJ, they tend to breathe really shallowly.
Oh.
They use those chest muscles instead of their diaphragm, and
Yeah.
this can actually create tension in the neck and shoulders, which then can radiate down to the jaw.
So learning to breathe properly using our diaphragm could actually help relax those jaw muscles.
Exactly. And there are so many resources out there. You can find them online and in person
Okay.
that can teach you proper breathing techniques.
Okay, so I'm adding learn to breathe properly to my TMJ to-do list.
Definitely worth it. And along with breathing, pay attention to your tongue posture.
My tongue posture. Is that a thing?
It is, believe it or not, the way you hold your tongue in your mouth can actually have an impact on your jaw alignment and muscle tension.
Okay, you've got me intrigued.
Oh.
Tell me more about this whole tongue posture thing.
So ideally, your tongue should be resting gently against the roof of your mouth, just behind your front teeth.
Like I'm about to say the letter N.
Exactly. And when you swallow, your tongue should press up against the roof of your mouth.
Okay.
That helps to expand your palate and create space for your teeth.
Okay, I see. So what happens if your tongue isn't in that ideal position?
Well, it can lead to a bunch of problems like a narrowed palate, crowded teeth, and even contribute to TMJ.
Wow, I never realized how powerful our tongues are.
Right.
So are there things people can do to improve their tongue posture?
There are exercises you can do, and there are even devices that can help train your tongue to rest in the right position.
Wow. Okay, I'm going to have to look into that. So we've covered a lot of ground on those practical tips.
We have.
But there's one more thing I want to emphasize before we wrap up this part of our deep dive, and that's the importance of seeking professional help.
Absolutely.
We've talked about all these self-care strategies, but there are times when professional guidance is essential.
Yeah.
So how do you know when it's time to call in the experts?
Well, if your TMJ symptoms are severe or persistent, or if they're interfering with your daily life, it's definitely time to reach out for help.
Okay.
And it's not just about finding any doctor. It's about finding the right healthcare professional for your specific needs.
And so who are the experts in this case?
Oh.
Who should people be looking for?
It really depends on the nature of your TMJ and your individual circumstances. But some healthcare professionals who can help diagnose and treat TMJ include dentists, oral surgeons, otolaryngologists, and even neurologists.
Wow, that's quite a team. How do you know which specialist is the right one for you?
Well, your primary care physician can usually give you a referral based on your symptoms and your medical history.
Okay.
But remember, it's always okay to advocate for yourself and seek a second opinion if you're not getting the answers or the care you need.
Right, we talked about that earlier, being an active participant in your healthcare.
Exactly. And when you're looking for a healthcare provider, make sure you find someone who really listens to you, who takes your concerns seriously, and who's willing to work with you to find the best possible treatment plan.
It's like finding a partner in your health journey.
Absolutely. And one last thing I want to emphasize is that there's no shame in seeking help. It's a sign of strength, not weakness.
Right. It's about taking care of yourself and prioritizing your well-being.
Exactly. And we'll talk more about the resources and support systems available in the final part of our deep dive.
We're back and ready to wrap up our TMJ deep dive. We've covered a lot of ground so far, really getting into the nuts and bolts of TMJ, the causes, the symptoms, and most importantly, all the different ways you can find relief.
Yeah, and now we're going to kind of zoom out and look at TMJ in a broader context.
I like that. So I'm curious, how common is TMJ? Are we talking about a small handful of people, or is this something that affects a lot of us?
It's actually way more common than people think. It's often called like a hidden epidemic.
Oh, wow.
Because so many people are living with it without realizing there are treatments out there.
So how many people are we talking about?
It's tough to get exact numbers, but studies suggest that it could be millions of people worldwide.
Millions.
Millions, yeah. Some estimates say as high as 10% of the population.
It's huge, and I bet that number is even higher if you include the people who are like undiagnosed or misdiagnosed.
Yeah. Absolutely, and that's why it's so important to talk about TMJ, raise awareness and encourage people to seek help if they're having any of those symptoms we talked about.
It's about breaking the stigma and letting people know that they don't have to just live with this pain.
Exactly. And it's not just about individual suffering either.
Right, because it impacts like society as a whole.
Right. Think about the healthcare costs associated with diagnosing and treating TMJ.
Yeah, that makes sense. All the doctor's visits, the imaging
Yeah.
tests, medications, therapies, potential surgeries, it's got to add up.
It really does. And then there's the lost productivity from people missing work or not being able to perform at their best because they're in pain.
So it's kind of this ripple effect that goes way beyond the individual.
It is, which is why investing in research and prevention is so important.
Okay, speaking of research, are there any exciting new developments happening in the world of TMJ? Like, are there any new treatments on the horizon?
Oh, absolutely. Researchers are constantly looking for new approaches. For example, there's a lot of interest right now in the role of genetics in TMJ.
Genetic, so you're saying it's not just about lifestyle and habits. There might be a genetic predisposition as well.
That's what they're finding, and understanding those genetic links could lead to more targeted and personalized treatments in the future.
That's fascinating. What else is on the cutting edge?
Well, there's growing interest in something called the gut microbiome.
Wait, the gut microbiome? What does that have to do with our jaws?
It might surprise you, but new research suggests that the bacteria in our gut can actually influence inflammation throughout the body,
Wow.
and that includes the jaw joint.
It really is all connected. So taking care of our gut health could potentially benefit our jaw health as well.
Exactly. And then there's ongoing research into new treatment approaches, things like stem cell therapy and gene editing. It's a really exciting field with a lot of potential.
It sounds like there's a lot to be hopeful for when it comes to the future of TMJ treatment.
There really is.
Well, this deep dive has been amazing. We've covered everything from the basics to the latest research. And I have to say, I've learned a ton.
Me too. And hopefully our listeners feel empowered to take control of their jaw health.
Absolutely. Remember, you don't have to suffer in silence. There are so many resources available, whether it's online forums, support groups, or qualified healthcare professionals who can help you.
And just as importantly, you're not alone in this. Millions of people are dealing with TMJ, and there's a whole community of support out there.
That's right. And as we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave you with this one final thought. We've talked about how interconnected our physical and emotional well-being really are, and how even small changes can make a big difference. So think about this. What's one small step you can take today to prioritize your overall health and well-being, starting with your jaw? It could be something as simple as drinking more water, or practicing good posture, or taking a few minutes each day to just relax and de-stress.
Those are all great starting points.
And remember the journey to lasting relief from TMJ. It's a marathon, not a sprint. Be patient with yourself. Celebrate those small victories and never give up on finding the answers and the support that you need.
We're so glad you joined us for this deep dive, and we wish you all the best on your journey to a pain-free life.
Until next time, keep those jaws happy and healthy.